A stuntman broke his back on set during a dangerous scene. Studio executives gathered immediately. "Fire him. He's slowing down production," they said. But Clint Eastwood walked into that boardroom and said only 3 words. Those 3 words became legendary in Hollywood. So what were those 3 words? And why couldn't the studio bosses even look Clint in the eye? This man, Buddy Van Horn, was Clint's stuntman for 30 years. He'd faced death alongside him countless times. Now, because of one accident, everything was about to end. Until Clint walked into that room. If this story of loyalty and friendship moved you, don't forget to subscribe, because we'll keep sharing the real character stories that Hollywood never tells. Hit that notification bell. The next story will move you even more. It was 1985, Warner Brothers Studios, Burbank, California. Clint Eastwood was shooting a new action film, Pale Rider. This was one of the projects where Clint both directed and starred. Budget was tight. Schedule was demanding. Every day mattered. And in every dangerous scene, there was one man taking the risk in Clint's place. Buddy Van Horn. Buddy was one of Hollywood's most respected stuntmen. He'd been working with Clint since 1967, almost 20 years. In Dirty Harry, he jumped from cars in Clint's place. In Every Which Way But Loose, he'd taken real punches. In Firefox, he'd performed dangerous flight scenes. Every time, he'd saved Clint's life by risking his own. Between them, there was a bond that couldn't be expressed in words. They weren't just co-workers, they were like brothers. That day, on the Pale Rider set, a critical scene was being shot. A high fall, 40 feet down, onto an airbag. Buddy had done scenes like this hundreds of times. He could do it with his eyes closed. But that day, something went wrong. The wind suddenly shifted, right at the moment of the fall. Buddy's body rotated. He landed at the wrong angle. He didn't hit the airbag. He hit the edge. Everyone froze. Silence. Terrible silence. Then Buddy's scream was heard. "My back! My back!" The crew ran. An ambulance was called. Clint watched from the set, his face white as a sheet. His closest friend was writhing on the ground. At the hospital, doctors made the diagnosis: spinal fracture, 2 vertebrae damaged. At least 6 months recovery time, they said. Maybe more. Maybe a year. And we have to tell you, whether he can do stunt work again is uncertain. Clint waited in the hospital corridor, alone. Buddy's family hadn't arrived yet, and Clint was the first to hear that terrible news. The next day, a meeting was called at the studio. Warner Brothers executives, producers, insurance company representatives, all of them sitting around a table. Clint had been called to the meeting, but hadn't arrived yet. The studio head began speaking. "We need to discuss the Buddy Van Horn accident. We've seen the insurance company report. 6 months minimum recovery. Production can't wait. We're burning $100,000 a day." The insurance rep continued. "The contract is clear. In cases of long-term disability, we have the right to replace the stuntman. From a risk management perspective, we need to find a new stuntman," one of the producers added. "Also, whether Buddy will recover is uncertain. If he can't recover, he'll be a major burden for the studio. The most logical decision is to terminate his contract. We'll pay his severance. It'll be a clean break." Everyone nodded. The decision was almost final. Buddy Van Horn would be fired. 20 years of friendship ended in one meeting. Right at that moment, the door opened. Clint Eastwood walked in, that familiar expression on his face. Cold, determined, demanding answers. Everyone in the room went silent. Clint walked to the table. without looking at anyone. The studio head cleared his throat. "Clint." "Right on time. We were just discussing Buddy." "I know," Clint said, his voice low but sharp. "I heard. Well, the situation is," the head tried to explain, "production has to continue. The insurance company is pressuring us. Buddy's recovery will take 6 months, maybe more. The most logical decision." "What's the most logical decision?" Clint cut him off. No one in the room could breathe. "Fire the man? The man who's risked his life for me for 20 years? Throw him out on the street because he had an accident?" The insurance rep tried to interject. "Mr. Eastwood, this isn't an emotional decision. It's a business decision. The contract terms are clear in cases of long-term disability." "Contract?" Clint turned to him. "Buddy Van Horn has done things for me that aren't written in any contract. He's jumped from cars, fallen from buildings, stayed in burning sets. Every time he risked his own life, instead of mine. And now because he had an accident, you're evaluating him with a piece of paper?" The studio head stood up. "Clint, I understand you, but production can't wait. We're losing money every day. We're responsible to investors. Everyone who cares about Buddy is sorry. But this is how business works." Clint took a step forward. "Is that right? Well, let me tell you this. If Buddy goes, I go." The room turned to ice. What do you mean?" the head stammered. "Exactly what I said," Clint replied. "Buddy stays on this film, or I'm pulling out. You'll lose your director. You'll lose your lead actor. And you'll have the biggest production crisis in Warner Brothers history. Which would you prefer?" The insurance rep exploded. "This is blackmail." "No," Clint said calmly. "This is loyalty. Without Buddy, I wouldn't be in this industry. He took risks for me countless times. Now it's my turn." The studio head was shining with sweat. "Clint, let's be reasonable. Let's find a middle ground." "Middle ground?" Clint laughed, but there was no warmth in his laugh. "Here's the middle ground. Buddy stays on contract. Full salary. The studio covers his medical expenses during recovery. And when he recovers, he comes back to this film. If the shooting schedule needs to change, it changes. If the budget needs to increase, it increases. But Buddy does not get fired." The insurance rep tried to object. "This is unacceptable. Company policy." Clint turned to him with that famous Eastwood stare. "He stays, period." 3 words. The room went completely silent. The studio head swallowed. The insurance rep looked at his notepad. The producers looked at each other. Nobody could say no to Clint Eastwood, and everyone knew it. "Okay," the studio head finally said. "Buddy stays." Clint nodded, walked to the door. Just as he was leaving, he stopped and turned around. "One more thing," he said. "This meeting never happened. Buddy will not hear that you considered firing him. Do we understand each other?" Everyone nodded. Clint left. The door closed behind him. The boardroom stayed silent for a long time. Over the next 6 months, Clint did everything he promised. He covered all of Buddy's hospital bills from his own pocket. He visited him every week at the hospital, then at home. He accompanied him to physical therapy sessions. He took care of Buddy's family's needs, and he adjusted the shooting schedule around Buddy's return. 6 months later, Buddy Van Horn walked back onto set, fully recovered, even stronger than before. The crew greeted him with applause. Buddy wiped his eyes and looked at Clint. The 2 men embraced without saying a word, because some things can't be expressed in words. But the story didn't end there. Clint didn't just protect Buddy, he elevated him. In 1988, Clint made Buddy an offer to direct The Deadpool. Buddy was shocked. I'm a stuntman, Clint, not a director. You're everything, Clint said. For 20 years, you've watched every scene, learned every angle. You know behind the camera better than I do. It's time to sit down, in the director's chair. Buddy directed The Dead Pool, the 5th film in the Dirty Harry series. The film was successful, grossing $37 million. Buddy transitioned from stunt work to directing. Pink Cadillac, Any Which Way You Can. He directed them all. The man the studio said, "Fire him," sat in the director's chair. Years later, in an interview, Buddy was asked, "How would you describe Clint Eastwood in one word?" Buddy's eyes filled with tears, and he said one word: family. He never saw me as an employee. Never. He saw me as his brother. And in that boardroom, he fought for me when I wasn't there. I learned this years later from someone else. Clint never told me, because that's who he is. He doesn't brag, he just does. Clint was asked the same question in another interview. Why did you fight so hard for Buddy? Clint's answer was short and sharp. Because loyalty doesn't work one way. Buddy risked his life for me for 20 years. I just talked in a boardroom. Who did more? In Hollywood, everyone measures you by your success, how many films you made, how much money you earned, how many awards you won. But Clint Eastwood made history with something different: his loyalty. In that boardroom, he didn't save a career. He saved a life. With 3 words. He stays, period. If this story of loyalty and friendship moved you, subscribe and share it. Real leadership is standing by your people in hard times. Have you ever seen someone fight for you when you weren't there? Share your story in the comments.